Yo, what's up, you guys? It's your girl, Tree the LPC, and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Self-Aware and Effed Up podcast. Man, let me tell you guys, I am so excited to speak with this week's guest. I was on her podcast recently, and it was amazing to speak with her, and I'm absolutely amazed by what she does. Her name is Dr. Akua. She is an empowerment speaker as well as an intentional life coach and life strategist, and she is going to share a lot with you guys about being intentional and living your best life. So I cannot wait for you guys to hear from her. So without further ado, please welcome to the Self-Aware and Effed Up podcast, Dr. Akua. Hey, Dr. Akua, how are you doing today? It's so great to see you.
I'm good. It's super good to see you. I felt like I was in my boxing robe with my hoodie over my face, and I was coming out.
Yes, I'm here for it. I am so grateful that you took some time out, and it is so amazing to just be able to chat with you. I know you do a lot with helping women kind of intentionally craft their life of wellness. And I really feel like there's so many women out there that can benefit from what you do and what you teach. So I want to know a little bit more about you. So can we just start by having you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. Like you said, I'm super passionate about helping women. And that comes from a place of, how I grew up. I grew up not really knowing who I was, not really knowing why I was here, and not even knowing that was a thing, to know those things. Had the nuclear family, mom, dad, sisters, but just didn't know me, felt very invisible, very alone most of my life. And so different professional pursuits and personal pursuits towards just learning who I was. That's a whole big old story. Once I realized that I don't like living in a space and in a way that other people get to dictate who I am and what I do. So I just, as I started my journey, I looked around and realized it's other women who could benefit from this. And I've never been I'm going by myself kind of person. It's always, I got it, you need it, okay, let's go. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love, you kind of exploring that piece of your life and not really having that voice, because I find that, like you said, so many of us don't really have our voice, and we have to kind of navigate that a little bit differently, because we've always been taught to kind of silence ourselves, be seen and not heard. So
speak when spoken to, all of that now. And I get it, on some real, I don't criticize how I was raised, because I understand it came from a place, we got origins of being enslaved. That's where I come from. People, African Americans. And so a lot of that stuff literally saved our lives and literally protected us. So it's not shade and it's not criticism. However, it's time to elevate beyond that. It's time to expand beyond that. Yes. And so having been raised in that environment, I quieted myself. I made myself small. I even when we were talking, I was like, oh, you don't got to do the whole doctor thing. I'm still learning to stand in that space where, yes, I worked hard. I earned a doctorate, and I am doctor. And it's a habit. Sometimes I don't even think about it. So it's still a work in process.
Yeah, first of all, you was going to be called doctor regardless, because I'm not going to listen or allow any Black woman to minimize herself in any space, period.
I'm here for it.
It's Dr. Akua, period. But I definitely, I like acknowledging that or whatever. And I mean, I do it sometimes as well, because I don't like to big myself up in that way, because it's just Tree, it's just Sandtrice. It's not that deep. But I think that is a way that sometimes we are taught to make ourselves be smaller. So your journey, like you said, you had to go help other people kind of build their own journey after you learned to kind of do that thing for yourself. How do you help others kind of move towards that authenticity and intentionality that, kind of drives your career and what you do to help others?
Yeah, it's through several methods. It's either training, it's either coaching, or it's either workshops. Mm-hmm. And literally, some of my biggest methods are reframing and asking questions, and then encouraging curiosity. I'm a huge fan of reframing. There's a lot of stuff that we were raised to believe that we, just and we believe it like it's law, it's Bible, it's scripture, but it's messing us up, it's hurting us, and it's harming us. And so when I work with people one-to-one, or if we're in workshops where there's a dialogue happening, I'm a huge fan of reframing, like, oh, okay, so is that really what it is? Why is it like that? Is there any other way that could be seen? When we talk about, well, for example, in the Black community, family is everything. Like you got to love the family, stick with the family. But sometimes the family is the reason why you stuck. Sometimes the family is the reason why you behind. So if family is everything and you can't live the life the way that you want to live it, what do we do with that? How do we reframe that? Does it mean we got to throw the whole family away? No. But can it mean that we create new boundaries and a new understanding of what our family means and how we engage and how we allow them to? It's all about reframing. And then, approaching things with curiosity, stop judging. Like when we have these staunch, got to do it this way, this is how I was raised, that's a decision, that's a judgment. But if we flip that and start asking questions, curiosity, do I have to do it like this? Does it have to be like this? Is this what it should? We start asking questions, that part inside of us that's like, hell no, like we want to get up out of this. Yeah. That part inside of us will start answering like, no, we want to get out.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I love the reframing thing. Obviously, I'm a CBT girl, cognitive behavior therapy. That's what I do. So it's kind of like reality therapist is the core in terms of being able to help people reframe their thoughts and examine, is what you're doing working. So I literally love that aspect of what you do. And going back to the family piece of it, because family is a big thing for a lot of people. And sometimes we are taught to put our family above everything. And I just, what do you think about people when they have tried to reframe things with their family and maybe change the dynamics, but nothing's working? What kind of guidance would you give to that person, in terms of like, how do I navigate this if it's not working? What should I do then?
Yeah, it's really different for everybody. It depends on like a lot of different nuances of the situation. Sometimes, and this is the part where it's like, if I'm working with somebody one-to-one, I'm like, all right, you ready for this one? Because sometimes it starts with me. Sometimes, I'm the drama.
Right.
Right. So if I'm trying to reframe and I'm trying to create boundaries to move away from the family dynamic because it's harming me or because it's not working for me, and if that piece isn't working, if I'm not able to step away from them, I do have to ask myself, what am I doing? What am I telling myself? There were times, even in my own life, and I find this often in the worlds of people that I work with. I'm like, well, I got, because it's so-and-so's birthday. Well, that's Uncle so-and-so. Well, I'm going to get away from them. I am creating boundaries, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. I don't want to do it. Listen to what you're saying. I don't want to do it. I'm going to just do it because I really don't want to go. Those are ways that you are contributing to the drama. You are contributing to the thing that you're trying to step away from.
Exactly.
And you got to be honest with yourself. Do I want to separate from them because it's harming me and it's not working for me? Or do I want to keep on appeasing them and working to make them feel good and harming myself? And that little nuance, harming myself, because we got to stop blaming other people. So that's sometimes where we go with it. There's other dynamics. Like sometimes people live with the family, so it's hard to separate. So we work on how to create boundaries in that situations. But a lot of times I'm the drama type, the person is the one bringing it. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Sometimes that's a hard conversation to have, is getting someone to look in the mirror at themselves and examine what role am I playing, because no one wants to be the person that's, culpable in that. They want to be the victim. And so I think moving from that victim mindset is a really important part of kind of just being intentional and owning who you are. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, it's easier when it's their fault. It's your fault. You did this. It's easier because then we don't have to take accountability. We don't have to really do any difficult work. It's you that has to do the work. When I turn that mirror on myself, then that's the part where it's just like, ouch, and
Yeah.
then not only am I considering how I show up in this space,
Mm.
now if I turn the mirror on myself, it also then invites me to look at how I'm showing up in other places where I blame somebody else. So now
Exactly.
I start to look at it in the wrong way. And I say it this way, like, if as I start to realize that there are ways I'm showing up because how I do one thing is most likely how I do it everywhere. So when I
Mm.
start to see I'm showing up in that way in other spaces, then there's that guilt and there's that shame and there's that, oh my gosh, like, am I a terrible person? No, you got
Mm.
some beliefs, you got some values, you got some ethics, some things that you grew up with, and it's time to change it. Don't nobody
Right.
mourn when it's time to change your underwear. You be like,
Mm.
okay, it's not even something you think about because they need to be changed. You wore them already.
Right.
Same thing. You wore that for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. It's time to change it.
Mm. Yeah. And change is hard for a lot of people. Like they have whole
Is
courses on change management in the work setting to get people on board with making changes because people don't like it. We want the
yeah,
status quo. And I know that, when it comes to moving towards authenticity and intentionality, it takes a lot of change.
it does.
Yeah.
It does. And it really starts with, and let me say this, it is definitely a process, just like I said for myself. Just
Mm.
because I got all of these labels and titles and experience and stuff like that, it does not mean that I'm da-dun, I got it. No,
Mm.
it is a process and it will continue to be a process until they say, here lies Akua, right?
Mm.
So it's an ongoing thing. And so go ahead.
No, you
Oh, I
good.
thought you were going to say something. Yeah, it's an ongoing thing. So like, it's slow and it starts with listening to ourselves. We said it before, how we're taught to minimize ourselves and lower ourselves along with making ourselves small and lowering ourselves
Mm.
is not hearing our voice. We teach ourselves to be governed and to be driven by what whoever they are, by
Mm.
what they think, by what they want, by what they say. And all the while, we are also teaching ourselves not to listen to what I need, what I
Mm.
want, but it's still there. So that
Right.
whole process of change, it really starts with identifying that voice. And that's that curiosity again. When whatever change you're trying to make, there's our body usually tells us, like, I love the way we are like put together. Our bodies are
Mm.
dope. And you will feel it when you get that invitation or that phone call, or you go around that person or they come around you and your back start hurting a little bit, or that little thing
Oh,
start happening in your stomach, or that little
Jesus.
thing start happening in your, right? Like your body will tell you, it's like an alarm.
Yeah.
Warning, warning. And so start listening. What is that feeling? Why do I always feel that when Auntie so and so come around? Why do I
Mm.
always feel like that when this situation comes up? What does that mean? And you start listening to yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the first step, is to be able to hear you and identify that you are trying to talk to you.
Mm.
The change, it's not going to be overnight. It's a process. So just lean into it and then literally can have fun with it, because you're getting ready to learn you and you're
Mm.
getting ready to start giving you what you need.
Yeah. So speaking of you, I want to know more about your personal journey towards this, and what was it like for you, kind of having to find that on your own voice and move towards making some of those changes that we're speaking about other people having to make.
Yeah. So, spoiler alert, I'm queer. I identify as queer. Like, I'm not going to even bury the lead. However, I have not lived that way for the majority of my life. And that wasn't the biggest part of my identity, because that's not just who I am. Like,
Mm.
that is a part of who I am. But there are different elements of myself. What I learned is, when we hide one part of ourselves, there's other parts of us that get trapped within that as well.
Yeah.
And so when I grew up, there was a lot of ideologies. I was quote unquote the smart one. And there were different things that
Mm.
I accomplished in my youth. And I always then I translated that to mean that I always had to be the good one. I had to make the good decisions. I had to
Yeah.
always be on point, cross the T's, dot the I's, P's and Q's, like,
Mm-hmm.
present as your best self. And there was always this something inside of me that sometimes I just didn't want to. I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
to show up in that way. Right. And also, I wanted to be able to live out the way that I wanted to live out.
Right.
Apparently, and this kind of may have been my own translation, my own understanding, but I'm also goofy as hell. I'm also, I'm really like, sometimes this is offensive, but I'm sorry. But sometimes I got blonde roots. Okay. I'm a little ditzy sometimes.
Okay.
And and I couldn't show up in that way, because if I showed up in my goofy way, people like, oh my God, I really thought you were smarter than that. I'm like, damn, smart people can't laugh. Like,
right.
is that how this goes? Right. So, um, really trying to live up to these expectations to get everything right. And I wasn't. And I was always afraid. I was literally afraid. I also grew up in the church. The church background is very heavy. And, was a leader in the church, was a teacher in the church, was a minister in the church. And every time I stood before the people, I was literally afraid. I had a fear that somebody would walk in and be like, she's standing up front. What do you don't know who she is. Mind you, did nobody know that I'm, queer? Did nobody know all of these things about me? But I just had this fear that somebody somehow was going to bust me out. So I lived a large chunk of my life literally hiding that piece. I even got married because I was like, okay, cool. If I get married, you can hide it even better. Like, what better to hide that you queer than marry a man? All right.
Wow. This is quite the journey.
Right. And in 2016, after a combination of just being traumatized and hurt and harmed in every way that you can name, every single one that you can name of, I had experienced that type of trauma. I experienced those types of hurt. And I realized, you know what? All of this fucked up shit is happening to me, and I'm not being myself. All of these harmful things are happening to me, and I'm living trying to appease people. And I decided, if y'all gonna harm me, if y'all gonna, not like me, if y'all gonna disrespect me, you gonna do it as who I really am. Because at least I get to enjoy who I am.
Right.
And you do me this way. Now, obviously, people ain't gonna treat me like that. When you step into yourself, they understand something different.
Right.
But in my mind back then, I was like, if you're gonna mistreat me, you're gonna mistreat all of me. You're gonna mistreat me authentically, who I actually am, what I actually like, who you just gonna have to go ahead and hit me with your best shot as I stand in the way that I really am. And so that started the journey of me doing what I just said a minute ago, listening to who I was. Like I said, it's not just about being queer. It's about letting myself laugh when I want to laugh, letting myself be free to be like, I don't know what that means. What does that mean? And people are like, come on, you know what I'm talking. I don't. And your frustration that lives with you. I still need an answer to my question,
Right.
And being able to stand in that space. So, that is the nutshell of my journey to getting to this place. Like, and I live as a Black woman. That is who I am. That is how I identify. That's right. And what I understand and understood was all of that time that I spent minimizing myself and squelching myself and, putting myself in a box that didn't fit me. I impacted a lot of, my educational opportunities, my career opportunities, my love opportunities, my friendship opportunities. And so that was also a part of my work, is not guilting myself, not saying, damn, I should have, would have, and I could have, and oh, if only I would have. Really just accepting that is a part of my journey. Yeah. That's what it took to get me to this place. So there's no such thing as if only I would have. I wish I would have. Okay, sure. And I didn't. So how do I live right here and move forward from this place? Yeah.
Yeah. I so appreciate your journey and your authenticity about your journey. See, I can't speak today either. But I really appreciate that openness of sharing that, because I feel like so many of us feel like we can only be parts of ourselves. And I feel like a lot of people within the queer community feel that we have to be all of this or all of that, and there are no other parts of us. So I love that you kind of own who you are, but I really, really love the part of focusing on the fact that you can't go back to the past. You can't change anything that you've done. All you can do is move forward. In terms of like helping lead others forward, how do you do that as a coach? Like, how do you help them stay present focused instead of focusing so much on the shoulds and the woulds and all that mess?
that it depends on the situation and circumstance. But one really key thing that I ask people to consider when they're doing the should, woulds, and coulds to themselves, and this is such a phenomenon to me. Like, I wish there was a way to like study this or understand this. If me and you are homies and you come to me and you tell me, yeah, I feel bad, and my life, I would never say to you, well, you should have did that when you was 15. Well, your life is just messed up when you was, because you made the wrong choice. I would approach you and receive you with so much compassion and so much grace. But then when it's me talking to myself, I hit me with those things. Well, you should have did that when you was 15. Well, that's your life, you mess it up. And I'm like, so that's one big component. Like, would you ever tell another living soul that that's what they get, or they should have did da 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 da, or you just F that up? You would never tell another person that, right? And sometimes I have to get them to identify who is that one person in your life, like, that you just love and you just want to protect and you just want to keep them, like, because you might be harsh with some of your friends, but like, I have a niece, I call her Macy. I would never tell Macy, well, that's what you get. That's my baby. I'd be like, who did it? Who did it? I'm finna go fuck what they say, right? So, and so I have to sometimes invite people to find that one person in their life who they just want to protect and who they just want to be gentle with. You would never tell that person. I would never tell Macy, you should have did this. I would help Macy accept the space that she's in, learn to understand why she's there, learn to embrace herself with grace and compassion and love, and then make a plan to move forward. And so that is all the process of getting people to accept that peace. And as they do that, turning that into themselves. Accept yourself with grace. Accept yourself with compassion. Accept yourself with love. You deserve it. You out here being, Captain Save-A-Hole. It came to my mind. I'm sorry, I'm going to just say it. You out here being Captain Save-A-Hole to everybody, and they know you to be so loving and so compassionate, so kind. But if we could put a speaker in your ear and hear the way you talk to yourself,
listen,
it would flip the script. So let's start treating ourselves like we treat other people. Exactly. I'm not a therapist, but there's a therapy technique that I really love. It's called the empty chair technique. I love that technique.
Therapy.
Yes, I love it. And essentially, and you could definitely correct me if I got it wrong because I'm not a therapist, but essentially you say, if someone harmed you and you have something to say to them, there's a chair in the room, you talk to that chair as if the person's sitting there. And then you get to flip it and you get to say what you imagine the person would say in response.
Right.
So that I kind of remixed that a little bit because I'm not a therapist, but doing that, you talk to you. Your harshest critic, that part of you that tells you shoulda, that's what you get, da 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 da. You say that to you, and then you flip it. What do you have to say back to yourself?
Yeah.
That then starts the dialogue where people get to kind of like help themselves to stop talking to themselves in the ways that they do and to give themselves the same or greater compassion, love, and acceptance and grace that they give to other people.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I'm not a Gestalt therapist, so I don't use that especially not in a virtual setting, but I have used it before when working in the treatment setting. And yeah, I think that that's definitely a helpful tool to be able to help people use, especially when it comes to the idea of like, we don't talk to our friends or our loved ones the way that we talk to ourselves. That inner critical voice breaks so many of us down like a fraction on so many different levels. So yeah, I love that. And you said like 20 times, I'm not a therapist, but I feel like your PhD is like in human development with a focus on some type of counseling, right? It's like
traumatology counseling.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what the hell that is, but it sounds good.
Yeah. So my curiosity, when I was pursuing my doctorate, I wanted to understand, because we have a lot of studies that are based in, Eurocentric ideologies, white people. They studied and came from the mindset of, white people. And so there's this human development scale that they say, oh, when you're this age to this age, this happens. And when you're this age to this age, this happens. And they talk about the ways that people are developed. Well, I wanted to understand, since Black people, because I'm rooting for everybody Black, since Black people, have that history of, enslaved ancestry, which is a history of oppression, which is a history of trauma. And that stuff is in our DNA. So even before you born, like your eye color, your hair length, and the trauma is all being, is a part of who you are in the womb. And so I was curious, I wanted to understand, what is the role of trauma on that human development scale? How does that impact when you're this age to this age, you do this. And when you're this age to this age, you do that. So with traumatology counseling, it understands what that impact is. And then it also helps inform a lot of what I'm talking about now, like how to help people move through. I am not a fan of get over it. How to help people move through that trauma and get to a place of empowerment as defined by themselves.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate you breaking that down for me. I love good human development, psychology, just in general, Erik Erikson and all of that. But like you said, it is very definitely Eurocentric. Levingson's model is more so my speed, like just following throughout the whole life cycle. But I love that. But I did not know that was a thing. So I really do that. Now I'm all intrigued about intergenerational trauma and all that. But we're gonna focus. We're gonna focus. I'm like, but that inner whatever, because I teach a class on just kind of dealing with that, like African Americans in counseling. So all of what you're saying was just like screaming to my insides. Well, we gonna stay on task.
Right, because the geek in me is just like, let's go, let's get into you talking about Levinson and all this, let's go. But okay, we'll still focus.
Listen, that's your specialty. I know about it because I had to take classes in it, and I love it. It definitely drives how I look at clients and how I look at people. Like, oh, you still stuck in this stage, so it's okay, because we have our psychological age, physical age, and social age, and all of that. And I always gauge you based on where you are. We might both be in our 40s, but it's some people that are 40, but they really still 20, and that's a whole different.
Yes, for real, facts.
Gotcha. But we are going to shift gears a bit and put it back on you. I want to know, how do you personally connect with the idea of being self-aware and fucked up?
Literally, I got a whole ass doctorate, and I still sometimes live with imposter syndrome, which I'm trying to find a different word for that. I won't get into that, but I feel like it's not the only reason why I have imposter syndrome is because what y'all told my ancestors and us that we are. And so we believed it. So I'm not going to go into that. Okay. But yeah, I have this ability to intellectually understand things. And sometimes emotionally, I need a little bit extra attention. I literally am in the space where I'm what is that word? Not struggling, but it's like I'm wrestling. There's a better word, between showing up and presenting as this woman of strength, but I also want to be soft. And as a Black woman in this world, this is America, # Donald Glover. Like, I don't get the permission to be soft. Being in a relationship and wanting to be soft, especially in a queer relationship, I'm sorry, but it's the same. It's almost like we copy pasted heteronormativity, but we just said, oh, it's same gender. Like, somebody got to be, the more masculine presenting, and somebody got to be the more. I exist on a spectrum, and all of that, putting me inside of a room with people, whatever the room is, with family, with whatever. The fucked upness is real. Sometimes I don't feel comfortable in the space just because of something. Somebody laughed too loud and I'm like, I'm up. Something like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have it all together.
Okay.
It's not literally like I don't have it all together. And in the Black community, don't you dare stand up and say, oh my gosh, I am a doctor, or I am a teacher, or I am a therapist, and then show the side of you that's soft, or show the side of you that's not healed yet, or show the side that's still working. Oh, I thought you was a doctor. Oh, I thought you was a therapist. You out here helping all of these people. You don't know how to help you. I literally had a situation on a job. Let me tell y'all, where a Black man asked me, because someone harmed me in a workspace. And a Black man said, well, why you don't use your traumatology counseling to help yourself?
I know you fucking lied.
I wish that I was. I wish that I was. And I was like, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to help myself even better. I'm going to lead this bitch. Like, that's how I'm going to help myself. So self-aware and fucked up is like, I know that there are areas in me that need attention. I also embrace myself with grace and with love and compassion. I'm not in a hurry. I can deal with me in this state. It's just like somebody who's, I don't know why Legos came in my brain, but when we used to play with Legos as a kid, you was building something and it was all kind of Legos just all over the floor. But what you were working on was right in front of you and you were putting the pieces together. Nobody belabored all the pieces on the floor. The pieces on the floor was opportunity because what I'm building, oh, I need the long one. Oh, I need the double one. I need that big one. I need that big flat one where I could click. All of those is opportunity. So all the pieces of me that's all over the place, that's an opportunity. I'm fucked up because I'm not put together the way that I would like to see it. But I know that there's an opportunity. So I'm patient with me and I'm gentle with me and I'm compassionate with me. I don't know. That seemed like a whole loop to loop. I hope
that was fucking beautiful, especially the Lego part and all the pieces of me. I felt it. I was here for it. I might steal it. But nevertheless.
Shout out to Lettucey. No.
Yes. I would be like, oh my God. Let's not get on Lettucey because, but yes. But I so appreciate you and you just kind of being open and just sharing. You know, I feel like so much of what you shared is just definitely a chef's kiss. I was really looking forward to this episode and really being able to chat with you again because it was such a pleasure to be on your podcast as well. But I want you to share with us, how can people connect with you?
Yeah. So you mentioned the podcast. I have a web series on YouTube on the Cute Shoes channel. You can search that and find me there. You can see the interview that I did with Tree, the LPC, and others. And also I'm on socials, C AkuaRose. So if you type, I'm at C AkuaRose, the letter C, because my, first name got to go in there, and then AkuaRose. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and I'm on TikTok. TikTok, I'm more being silly. That's the part where I give myself permission to be that silly and goofy part of me. Yeah. I have a website. It's determinedlyready.com. Right now it's under some construction, but you can go there and check me out and learn a couple of things about me and check in.
All right. Good deal. Anything else you want to share with the audience before we get out of here?
Really, the only thing I want to say is something that I heard myself saying a lot during this conversation is to be kind to yourself. Embrace yourself with grace. Embrace yourself with compassion. Embrace yourself with love. There is no need for you to be perfect. You are a work in process. If you are still living and breathing, there is still more to be done. There's more healing. There's more growing. There's more developing. And just allow yourself the freedom in that space. Allow yourself permission to develop and to grow and to become.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for your time and taking the time to chat with me and share your experience and your expertise with the audience. You guys, make sure that you follow Dr. Akua. I said it again, Dr. Akua. Make sure you guys follow her. Her information will be in the description of this episode. Also, be sure to follow me, Tree the LPC, on all social media platforms under the handle Tree the LPC. Until next time, be safe, be well, and make sure that you take care of your mental health.